Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us for this very special webinar that we've organised to describe alternative routes to study medicine. You've been invited to this webinar, and as well as yourselves, I've got 3 other individuals who have had various routes into medicine. Some of them are currently medical students, others graduated some years back. And we all wanted to share with you our story and to really give you the opportunity to ask us questions about your journey. You're at the beginning of a journey. Some of you might want to be going straight into medicine. Some of you may be considering other routes into medicine. And we felt that at this stage in your lives, it might be particularly relevant for you to hear other people's perspective. So let me start with myself. I'm Amrit Muda. I'm a professor of neurosciences at the University of Southampton, but I'm also the admissions tutor for all the undergraduate programs, which is why I'm hosting this event. I get asked very often about people who want to do medicine and why biomedical sciences or any other degree within biological sciences might equip you, prepare you to go on to do medicine. And I think this is really important because sometimes people make decisions which are not well informed. Myself, I'm a good example of that. When I was your age, which is many, many years ago, when I was your age, I was very interested when I was doing my A-levels in the human body and in how the body changes during disease and how we can use that to diagnose patients, to treat patients. And so I was told by everybody that if that's your interest, you need to do medicine because medicine is going to allow you to study human disease. And so I worked very hard, did all the relevant work experience, got into medical school. It was just as hard then as it is now. So we spent all our energies getting into medical school. And within a month of getting into medical school, and it was a medical school in London, within a month of getting into the medical school, I realized that actually it wasn't what I thought it would be. We were being taught about the body and how it goes wrong in disease, but we never had time to think about how the changes occur that lead to disease and how you could use that information to devise therapies. We spent all our time memorizing changes that are evident in disease, in memorizing drugs that could be used to treat the disease. And then I realized very quickly that my life as a medical practitioner will be that, will be remembering all the clinical symptoms that I need to remember to be able to diagnose the disease, and then remembering which drugs I need to give to the patient. And if I was interested really in working out mechanism by which the disease appears, this wasn't my line to enable me to do that. That was really what the scientist did. As a medical student, I could still do that, or as a medical practitioner, I could still do that, but it would be further down the line. It would be 5 years later, 6 years later, 7 years later, when I'd then have to take some time out of my medical career, do a PhD, and then go on and learn, do medical research to work out mechanisms. But I didn't want to wait that long. For me, I really wanted to work out, why does the healthy brain, in my case, become abnormal? How can I use that information to design a therapy that will then help anybody and everybody who has that unhealthy brain? And so I made the brave, I would call it, stupid, my parents would call it, decision of actually taking a gap year. I left medical school after a month of being there. They kept my place for me because they thought I was very foolish. And I took the year to think about which other degree course may allow me to still learn about disease, but actually learn about it from the perspective of a scientist. And then I stumbled upon biomedical sciences and other degrees within biological sciences, and I've never looked back. I did my 3 years in biomedical sciences. I then did a PhD in neurosciences because I realized during my degree in biomedical sciences that the brain was the organ that I was most interested in. So I did my PhD in neurosciences at the University of Oxford, and then I did some postdoctoral research at the Institute of Psychiatry in London for a few years, and then I started a lectureship position in Southampton, where I've remained for 20 years. And my lab still works on diseases of the brain, but now I'm interested primarily in trying to understand how nerve cells get sick in Alzheimer's disease, how that leads to memory loss, how we can use that to diagnose patients early, how we can treat patients. And this is really my journey. I have with me Professor Karari, who is a professor in clinical neuroanatomy she also has an unusual journey to share with you, and more importantly, she's also on the Faculty of Medicine interview panel, so she would give you the perspective of her own independent journey, but also the perspective of someone who's interviewing prospective medical students. And then after Roxana, I will introduce two other students who've joined us who did a first degree in biological sciences, and then they're currently medical students. So Roxana, over to you.
Hello everybody, good evening, and thank you so much for Professor Muda for inviting me to this evening. It's very interesting because yes, I have my personal perspective on what I've done with my life, but like Amrit, this is many years ago that I was at your stage. But of course, more recently, I'm interviewing for medical school admissions, and I think that's far more important and insightful for you. And what stands out when we interview is the maturity of those that have gone through a prior degree. And what the interviewers often relate to is the biomedical sciences background. So most clinicians that are not academics will be fascinated, some are even outright scared of the scientific method, but they recognize the value. So as soon as they see somebody with that kind of background, they are, half the battle is won. And why is that? Because when I teach year 1 and year 2 medical students, in fact, I teach in every year, but mostly years 1 and 2, because that's when they do most of their anatomy. And it's so beautiful when you don't have to literally spell out the word neuron, you know, because there are some people that will come with a music background. You know, in the BM4, they'll appear with a background in humanities. They've never come across any kind of language or any kind of exposure to anything biomedical, and it is hard. It's difficult. It's not impossible, of course, because they progressed, but it is much, much harder. So, Amrit, should I keep quiet now? I've introduced myself, and then you can come back. We can have a discussion later.
Do you want to tell everyone about how you decided to do medicine, and then you decided?
So that's right. So I'm a medical background. So I've done a little bit of you know, well, a little bit. I did all my house jobs. And I thought I was very happy, and I thought I was going to do surgery. Like any future surgeon, you're enthused about anatomy. Like anybody doing surgery, you know about the value of, you know, knowing the normal anatomy so you can recognize the abnormal. And then in order to help with postgraduate exams, it does help if you walk into an academic environment and you immerse yourself in anatomy. And that's exactly what I did. Only when I started anatomy, I actually happened to like teaching anyway, because I'd been doing it since I was a medical student. I became fascinated with the brain and what later would become my area of research. And my major question was, why are there lymphatic vessels everywhere in the body and we haven't got any in the brain, and what are the consequences of that? And once I started investigating that, I literally just became fascinated with that question, and I forgot all about leaving to do clinical medicine and stayed in in essentially basic science. My area of research is basic science. I stayed in anatomy and I progressed there. I did my PhD and, you know, then just progressed through the ranks in the medical school. And it's lovely because I've actually, I can see the value of research and biomedical research in our lives, those that have gone through a prior medical degree, but most importantly, in your lives. I've been here in 25 years. So I've had ex-students that are now close to retirement almost, you know, because depending on what specialty you're doing. And, you know, and those that have actually come in with a prior biomedical background have done phenomenally well. I'm very, very proud of each and every one of them because they just flew through, no problem at all. In fact, I've got one now who is a year 4 medical student who's come to do a research project, and she's not required to do a research project because she's on the BM4 program, so they're supposed to move much faster. But she said she's had a neuroscience degree and realized that she hasn't actually put it to use since the interview, when of course she wooed everybody and, you know, she got her place in medical school, and then it helped her when she did neuroanatomy, and then nothing. So she's just come out of her own free will to do you know, some research with us, and she's thriving. So she really enjoys it.
Great, thank you very much, Roxana. That's a really interesting perspective. Thank you for that. I'd now like to call forward Jordan, who can tell us a little bit about himself. He can introduce himself and then he can tell you all about his experience.
Okay, so good evening everyone. I'm Jordan Chun, and I'm currently a first-year medical student at Barts and the London Medical School, and I'm part of Queen Mary University in London. So, as Amrit mentioned earlier, I did a degree in neuroscience. So I graduated in 2020, and so I did 3 years at Southampton before starting medical school. And I think the reason I did a degree first, as opposed to going into medicine straight away from A levels, is because when I left college, I had medicine in the back of my mind, sort of as a career option, but then I still wasn't really that sure about it, and then I didn't want to sort of apply to medicine and then be stuck with medicine for 5 years. So because I was interested in other aspects of sort of healthcare as well, such as working in pharmacy or the pharmaceutical industry, and so I applied to Southampton to do the pharmacology program, and so I started out doing pharmacology, and I realised sort of early on in my degree that I actually preferred sort of the neuroscience aspect of biological sciences. So I switched my degree from pharmacology to neuroscience, which is really easy to do within the School of Biological Sciences, because we're in first year, we all share the same modules anyway. So if you come in as a biomedical scientist, you can easily switch to neuroscience, or if you come in as a biochemist, you can easily switch to pharmacology. It's not a problem at all. But I had a really good 3 years doing neuroscience, and I think I definitely don't regret doing a degree before starting medical school, because it helped me sort of solidify my desires to medicine. So I used the 3 years to sort of do a bit more research into medical career, and also I knew what sort of topics within medicine I liked the most. So in my 3rd year, I took Dr. Moody's module on neurodegeneration, and that introduced me to sort of the pathophysiology of spinal cord injury. And so, combined with my sort of prior neuroscience knowledge, I came into medical school interested in sort of neurological rehabilitation and musculoskeletal rehabilitation. So now I have that sort of academic interest from my previous degree, and I can sort of now tailor my medical degree to sort of further my understanding of that field, and sort of how we can sort of rehabilitate people who've been in like serious car accidents or who've had amputations, and how we can treat them. So it's really helped, because it it sort of helps you establish your own interests before you start medical school, and you come into medical school with some prior research experience and definitely some prior sort of academic experience with the content of the degree. So I remember for the first sort of 2 months of my degree, it was just fine sailing here because I'd already been introduced to most of the concepts on the course from my previous degree. Yeah, so I'm happy to take any questions, but I'll let Amrit sort of decide what to do next in terms of his meeting.
Okay, thanks, Jordan. I will come back to ask you a question that I'll pose to both you and Michael, but let me first now introduce Michael. Michael, the floor is all yours.
Great, thanks, Amrit. Hi, everyone. My name is Michael. I graduated biomedical sciences at Southampton last year, and I'm in my first year of graduate entry medicine at the University of Oxford. I started the course in 2017 wanting to go into medicine initially, and sort of biomedical sciences being a tool or a route to get me there. But now looking back, it was a good decision. It was sort of worked out in a great way that I had that experience, because even now looking forward, I think that a PhD is something I might want to pursue, because my time spent in my undergrad really taught me a lot. And one thing you realize in medical school is that there's not always time to go over things in detail or at all, you know, maybe at a glance. But when you actually take the time to slow down and have a look into things that interest you and that you can maybe focus on a bit more, I quite like that Southampton lets you choose your own subject. So I chose a lot of immunology and infections-based modules throughout the years, and that sort of you know, gave me more interest in that field, and I've been able to cultivate that moving forward. Like Jordan said, it's you know, you become a person with interests over time, and definitely a degree helped me with that. So what I would say is that the degree at Southampton is great. In my course, everyone is a postgraduate, so we have PhD students, chemistry students, engineers, and it can be a bit daunting, you know, seeing people coming from MIT and all these places. But a degree from Southampton really, you know, stands on its own, and the knowledge you get from that kind of teaching, it's amazing. It really is. And so I'm really fortunate to have been taught by great lecturers and have this scientific knowledge. And I think I agree with what everyone said. Having a scientific background in medicine it should go part and parcel. I think Amrit said this earlier. Being a doctor is, you know, a scientist. You know, being a doctor, you have to be a scientist as well. And I found that you know, interacting with other doctors, interacting with patients, having a scientific background, it really just makes you a bit more mature, a bit more able to hold a conversation and think about some intricacies that other people maybe would skip over because it's too detailed or something. But it's a very complex field. But what I would say is that Southampton's great. I've had some really great experiences there. I did a semester abroad, which I can talk about a bit later. I did that in Australia, and that also was a really good part of the course. But yeah, I'm happy to take questions as well. Yeah, I don't have enough good things to say. I really am grateful for my time at Southampton.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Jordan. So let me pose a question now to either of you, and if Roxana feels that she can, you know, add to that, she will. So tell me, if you could think of one thing that, having done a first degree, has helped you with in your course, what would it be? If there was one standalone thing that you feel that really helped you because you did that first degree rather than coming into medicine straight away. I mean, Michael, you said you almost felt that it was better to have done it this way. And sometimes, you know, life deals as a set of cards that in retrospect we think were better ones than the ones we thought we should have got. So let me start with you, Michael, then. If there was any one thing in your degree you could pick that's helped you, what has that been, and how has that helped you?
I'd definitely say that this year I found that my undergrad really helped me with some of the time management skills and the organizational skills, because you do have a bit more free time in your undergrad. You know, you have time to work on your own and you have to be disciplined. And I think that also ties into you know, what you're interested in. If you're interested in something, you're going to use your free time to do your lab project, and you're going to use that extra time to be a bit more inquisitive. Like I think Roxy said she had a student who didn't really have to do a project, but she found that in an extra time to do it. And I find myself doing the same thing in my undergrad because it was enjoyable. It wasn't work. It felt fun. And so that's definitely helped me, because time management in general, just in life, is is something that we all I think struggle with, but the degree really helped with that.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Michael. That's a really good point. Okay, Jordan, what about you? What if there's any one thing that you could say helped you?
So this sort of ties into Michael's point, really. So Michael went just talked just now about time management, and then for me, the sort of main sort of benefit of me doing a degree sort of before starting medicine is the sort of learning how to learn aspect. So doing a degree in biological sciences, you obviously having really complex scientific concepts sort of thrown at you every single day, and then learning how to process that, and then sort of learning how to sort of take that in and then revise for it in the exam. Over 3 years, I honed my sort of like analytical skills. So normally, if I have a lecture now, my first sort of my first like thing I always do is check the learning objectives to see like exactly what I need to learn from that lecture, and then when the lecture finishes, I sort of go back through the slides and the PowerPoint just to see what's on there, and then I look at the references. So I then sort of look for reviews in peer reviewed journals, and sort of that helps to put sort of the context of a lecture in the wider sort of context. Yes, and then especially if maybe the lecturer you didn't really understand the lecture, or they could have explained it a bit better, or they could have explained it differently. So like just engaging in sort of wider reading really helps. And then I sort of took that going into medical school, and now I have those sort of revision techniques already established for me, and I know they work for me. So I sort of carry that forward, and now sort of revising for medical school finals isn't as daunting anymore, because you can sort of break down the lectures into specific points, the learning objectives that you need to understand to take the exam, and then you can engage with sort of the wider academic literature to sort of find those find the answers. And also you can make use of anything you want, really. So YouTube, flashcards, like the internet, sort of like it provides everything you need. So the lectures, and they draw this into Southampton as well. The lectures are only the start, really. So you should always try and sort of read around the wider context of the lecture to put it into perspective. And I remember in the first week of teaching, all of the undergraduates on the course were sort of they were really worried about how hard this one lecture on cell biology was. So I remember it was a really long lecture. We had to go into all the details about the nucleus and mitochondria, what they do, and they were all sort of taking the lecture content as Bible, as it were. So they were only going off the content on the PowerPoint slides, and I was already there, working through the online textbooks, working through sort of nature reviews, and that really helped to again like break it down and make the task of revising all of this new content less daunting. So yeah, if there's anything I've taken away from Southampton, is that learning how to learn during your first degree really helps you like carry forward those sort of proven proven revision techniques into medical school.
So you both seem to be saying that you're kind of a little bit ahead of your colleagues, not just in terms of how much experience you've got at being a student, a university level student, but also in your basic knowledge. I often use this analogy where medicine's almost a language you would write, whereas a first degree in a biological sciences subject is learning the alphabet, right? So once you know the alphabet, you can actually write anything you like because you know how to write. Whereas perhaps medicine is sort of copying phrases, which it would be much better for somebody to know how to write the phrases rather than actually just copy them. And I think being able to, understand those basic concepts right from the beginning really obviously puts you both ahead of your colleagues. Do you think that? I mean, what advice would you give? I mean, the individuals who have joined us today, they're obviously offer holders, and some of them will be trying to get into medical school straight away. Others are going to try and come through biomedical sciences. But is there any advice that you'd give them? That perhaps someone should have told you, any reassurance? If you don't get into medical school, it can be very upsetting initially until you realize that, okay, the other options you chose probably ended up being better for you anyway. But would either of you give any advice to someone who's relatively young at that stage, on the cusp of the next chapter in their life? What would you say to them?
I can start off with this, that's okay, because I definitely think that speaks to me. When you're young, you think you have everything figured out, and even small things are quite daunting and seem to be like they're going to change your life forever. But I would just say the advice I'd give myself as well is just enjoy the process, because you don't get that time back. What you're going through is going to build you up as a person, and it's going to inform the rest of your life, your decisions. And so just give it your all, but don't let it define you. You see a lot of people at university who don't have that holistic sort of experience because they let it consume them. And I think I might have fallen victim to that a bit, and especially in the beginning, not so much later on. But don't be too hard on yourself, and let people help you, and let people be there for you. And this university will offer you a lot of support. I really relied on we had a sort of personal tutor, almost a liaison who was a faculty member, and I got so much comfort from speaking to her and telling her my plans and then how we're going to work towards that. And so don't be too hard on yourselves. If there's exciting times out there, there's exciting stuff to be learned, and as long as you're enthusiastic and enjoying what you're doing, then you're on the right track.
I mean, that's very, very mature advice, Michael. That's exceptionally good advice for every aspect of your life. And I mean, how well have you done? Would you have been there had you? I don't know if you would have been there where you are now had your wishes come true the first time round and you'd gotten into medical school the first time round. So that's really, really good. And yes, Michael does allude to a pastoral care system that we're very, very, very proud of. I mean, if I were to think about one thing about Southampton that would be the reason for me to send my children to Southampton, it would be the pastoral care. And I'll tell you why. I started out medical school in a different place. I did biomedical sciences, not in Southampton, because at the time my options were limited. I was going in through clearing because I was holding my medical school place, and I didn't actually release it until the very end. So I had to go wherever anybody took me. And I can really honestly say that my successes from my undergraduate degree were my own efforts. There wasn't anybody who had my back, who advised me, who told me, go and do this and go and do this. Everything I did, I just did because I was just inspired and motivated to do it. And I just forged my own way. But in Southampton, your success is our success. We're so proud of Michael and Jordan and others like them. So, 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 so proud. Because we've invested in them as individuals and we care that they succeed. And I think that is really something that you may want to take. I mean, there might be some of you who don't really mind who's helping you or who isn't, because you know what you're doing and you're going to do it anyway. But there might be others who actually like to take support from somebody else, who like to be advised by somebody else. And that personal tutor that you get given in Southampton is somebody who then becomes your mentor from day one and stays your mentor for the 3 or 4 years you're with us. They advise you at every different point. I remember that some of my personal tutees, they will tell me right from year one that they want to do medicine. And so from year 2 onwards, I'll start badgering them. Have you done the work experience you need to do to be competitive? What does this work experience look like? And then I will give them personal statements from previous students who've managed to get into medical school to have an idea of what it takes to cut it. Sometimes I contact colleagues like Roxana and say, I have a student, can you advise me? What should I tell her? How should she prepare? So we will go out of our way to enable you to succeed. And that's, I think, one thing that if you are the kind of person who likes that, then do consider Southampton. Jordan, what's the advice you'd give?
So I completely agree with Michael about sort of just taking it as it goes, because at the end of the day, university, just with any sort of course you go into, it is going to be an amazing experience for you. And yeah, at that age, you really don't know what you want, like, putting it frankly. So like maybe they want to take the time, taking 3 or 4 years or however long you're at university to sort of develop yourself as a person. You can only go to medical. I mean, if you do decide to go to medical school later on, that's great. And then you'll have had your previous experiences to sort of guide you and sort of help you be more, help you have matured as a person, and to be able to take that next step in your career. Because doctors are people who are entrusted every day with people's lives. So I'm sure people will agree that you'd much rather have someone who's taking the time to mature themselves and sort of know what they want, treating you like when you're in that position. And yes, take advantage of everything that university has to offer you, especially the extracurricular side. And I say that because medical school is tough, but it's not all about work. And medical school admissions, they love to see people who do things on the side as well, and they like to see people with extracurricular interests, because as a doctor, the work is very hard. So you need sort of coping mechanisms to be able to deal with the challenges of the job. And I remember when I was interviewing for medical school, one of the questions they asked me was, so what can you contribute to our medical school in terms of extracurricular activities? And then I answered because I've been working in student journalism at Southampton for the last 2 years, and I've been working as a student ambassador, and I've been working in outreach events just like this one, like helping prospective students sort of decide what they want to do. And I actually think that's what got me into medical school, being able to give a really honest and developed answer to that question. What can you contribute? Because yeah, as I said earlier, it's not all about work, and being a well-rounded individual, as well as getting other grades, is of the utmost importance, really. And yeah, that's what I have to say.
Can I don't even know if you can hear me, because oh yes, I can see there's a word next to me. It's always nice to see the word live next to me at my age, so that's quite nice. So especially when you work in neuropathology and neuroanatomy, where everything is very still. So I just wanted to say that I was listening to Amrit when she said that she would send her children to Southampton for the pastoral support, and she is absolutely right. I same here. And I actually have 2 anecdotal stories that are related to my children that are in your age group. So my daughter is a medical student in Lincoln, very far away, and battling all sorts of situations and problems. And actually, she told me the other day, she said that she's quite, not jealous, but she used a word, she said, you know, if only, she said, so and so, I'm not going to, you know, name drop, so and so is doing so much better because of course they've done you know, biomedical sciences beforehand. And you know, it's interesting because even when she applied to medical school, she applied to Southampton, and she filled in her personal statement. I helped her, so I did help her, and then she went off to her college, erased everything we had done together, put what everybody else had put, right? Because they all did this preparation at college, and she didn't stand out at interview, and she took out exactly the things where I think she could have, you know, excelled. Things like, you know, she'd done volunteering, she raised money, charity, all of that. She took all of that out. She said, I'm not showing off. And they all listened to this person in college who told them how to write the personal statement, and none of them got in. So it may have been the day, it may have been them, it may, and who knows. My son, who is now going into year 2 of college, he said, well, I'm not doing that. I'm doing biomedical. So he's doing biology, chemistry for A levels. And he said, I'm going to do biomedical sciences. I'm not ready. He said, I'm looking at her. I don't want to be like, I'm not ready. I'm doing biomedical sciences, because he watches closely what it's like to just not have that, you know, biomedical background. It's so much harder. And you know what? I don't think you ever catch up. You know, I and this is from looking at my own students. The BM4 students that have got a biomedical degree, they are flying, they are having fun, they're just doing, and then I'm looking at the poor BM5s that have come straight off, you know, and they are struggling big time, and they're the ones that require most support, and all sorts of situations occurring there. And it's interesting what Amrit said to you, Michael, because you mature. You know, a prior degree matures you, and a biomedical sciences degree matures you in a certain way towards medicine. And I think it would be very, very difficult for any interviewer to turn you guys down if you are really serious about it. And you know what? If it's not to be, and this is a very recent story, my old PhD student was absolutely determined to do medicine. So, okay, he's done biomedical sciences. He then did an entire PhD in my group. He said that's not enough. He went on and became editor of Nature Nephrology. So I thought, oh, well, he's gone off on that path then. Then he came back saying, will you write me a reference for medicine? And I said, are you absolutely sure? Yes, I'm absolutely sure. That was about, oh, I don't know, a few months ago. And he's popped up now, happier than ever. I said, you got in? He said, no, forget that. I'm going to the States on clinical trials as a postdoc. He said, I am so happy I didn't fall into that, you know. So, you know, it opens so much and so many, such broad perspectives. On the other hand, my ex-student, who was also Amrit's ex-student, she's done her biomedical science. Actually, she's done biomedical sciences and then neuroscience masters, right? She wrote to me all happy and beaming that she's been accepted into not one, but 2 medical schools, Lincoln and Aberdeen. So she's, you know, so I think it just equips you with so much and so many different, you know, and you're not even, none of us have actually even spoken about the fact that, hey, people, where is the money? The industry, right? Pharma companies. I mean, I'm sure Amrit's got examples. I know I've got examples of people that have gone on to my ex-postdoc Actually, she was my PhD student first, then she became a postdoc. She is now in Basel at, God, the name will come to me, Roche Pharmaceuticals, earning more than I do. A lot more than I do, because it's Switzerland. And, you know, Tesla car, you name it. And, you know, it's like yesterday, she was, and this is not long ago, she's only been there for about 3 years now. So, you know, the perspectives are just so much broader than medicine, I'd say. Medicine sort of gets you to be more and more and more and more focused. I mean, I don't know what, you know, what your feeling is, but it's so much nicer to have that breadth first. You're confident, you know, you can understand, you know your scientific method, you know, if nothing else, you're going to impress at interview, you know, you're going to impress, you know, in various, and then if you do still decide to go to medicine, at least you've got that solid background and you can afford to go narrower and narrower and narrower and become super specialized in the big toe. But that's what medicine does, right? That's what it does. You become so focused and specialized, but it's so much nicer to have that broad background.
Thank you very much, Roxanne. You've given us a very different perspective. So we're coming up to the last few minutes of our session, and I really haven't seen any questions in the chat. Please do ask us. You've got, you know, you've got very few minutes now. This is your opportunity. You're never going to be in a position where there'll be 4 other people available to answer your questions. So anything that you have at the back of your mind, or that, you know, that Jordan, Michael, Rox, or I can answer, please do put it in the chat.
Amrit, I'm just going to speak a bit, and then if anyone adds a question, I'll stop and we can have a look at that.
Sure.
I think such amazing points were raised that were so relatable, and often people don't talk about it in a medical setting. You know, it just kind of goes unnoticed. But honestly, such relatable things. Like, people take it for granted that you know, doctors must know everything, but some things are literally skimmed over because there is just not enough time. There is not enough time. There are not enough lectures to be done, and so that's something that having that scientific background helps bridge that gap. And you don't have to be worried about not knowing, you know, whole terms and all these things. You sort of make the connections. And as well, what everyone said, one of my best friends in my class now is he's almost 30. He did his PhD and a master's, and he's so happy and he's so excited by what he's doing now that he doesn't regret the path that led him there. He quite enjoyed it. But you know, if there's a will, there's a way, and we live in a society that's very, you know, instant gratification. We think we have to do things now, but if you think about it, if you're wanting a long career as a clinician for 30-40 years, what is 3 years out of that? What are 3 or 4 years taking the time to get you there? And I've met many doctors who, you know, once you've sort of graduated, then you don't know what you want to specialize in, and that's another year or 2 or 3 to, you know, work around. And so there really isn't any rush. And with the way things are going, and, you know, improvements and all these exciting discoveries and stuff, it's a really exciting time to be interesting and have more of a broad background than something that's a bit narrow and quite focused. And just also wanted to add my experiences doing a semester abroad in Southampton. So that's something that I actually knew about going in, and that was something that was really attracted to me. I wanted to be able to spend a semester abroad. So that was in second year somewhere else, and I had my heart set on going to Australia for 6 months, and that was great. It was a really great opportunity to make something of your degree that, you know, just make it a bit more interesting and make yourself an interesting person, and you know, get some good teaching from world-leading experts. And I think what Roxy said as well, it's like it's really hard to write like your personal statement, and I found the interview process as well. It's hard to speak about yourself positively and, you know, convey all these things that, you know, it's not natural. It's not a natural instinct, but definitely the preparation, even the careers team at Southampton helped with that, and just through practice and you know, how to write your personal statement, and what do you get on there that's gonna make you competitive. For example, I was, like I said earlier, but interested in infections and immunology, and so I told my personal tutor, and she helped me find an internship at the Jenner Institute in my end of my second year, and so that was something interesting I could put on my application that gave me some experience and insight. And so yeah, there'll be opportunities there. You just make the most of them.
I've just put a link on there for a very nice video that Michael made for us about his year abroad that he speaks about. So if you are interested, please do look at that. Okay, so no questions yet. Maybe it's maybe we've kind of covered most of the things you were interested in, perhaps. Any last minute things that anybody want to say before we close the session?
Yeah, so I'll just reiterate what Michael said. Doing a degree, so it really helps sort of broaden your horizons. So Michael mentioned that through 3 years of his degree, he's able to go to Australia and get an internship from the Jenner Institute. And so like university has so many opportunities away from medicine and just away from academic as well, that you can that you just need to sort of take advantage of. And I think sort of one of the main non-academic sort of benefits of going to medicine as a postgraduate is that you've had 3 years to learn how to be a grown-up, quite frankly. So you know how to manage your time, how to sort of cook your own meals, how to like interact with people both on your course and for societies, and just meeting like loads of new and different people and being able to sort of talk to them. It is really beneficial for when you actually start medical school and perhaps you're only seeing medical students. Just having those sort of broadened horizons from the past 3 years has been really useful. And I just remember the first week at medical school, I was sitting in the kitchen having to teach my undergraduate flatmate how to cook pasta for the first time. So it was quite a surreal experience to have. And yeah, it just sort of exemplifies, as Michael said earlier, how much doing a degree can mature you as a person, and how it just sort of really helps to go to medical school knowing what you want, and having everything that your undergraduate has sort of given you under your belt already, and just being starting medical school as a really well-rounded, sort of educated individual. It's done nothing but good.
Okay, thank you very much, Jordan and Michael and Roxana, for joining us. I will close the session now. Please do email us. I'll put my email address there if you have any further questions. And there will be a recording of this talk as well, which we will circulate if you want to. But thank you, everybody. Thank you, Roxana, for that. And yeah, wish everybody a good evening then. Thank you very much.